I know that after all the big summer meets are concluded, the world of swimming can slow down a little bit, but that time is over because we're ramping things back up. I know for some of you, your mind immediately jumps over to the world of NCAA swimming, but we have another very exciting series of meets coming up very soon, the 2025 Swimming World Cup. So, what is the Swimming World Cup? When is it? Who will be competing, and how much prize money is on the line? The Swimming World Cup is a series of 3 meets spread out over 3 different stops, each one in a new location. Each meet lasts for 3 days, and they happen 1 week after another. Both last year and this year, the format for these meets was in the very fast-paced and exciting short course meters. Last year, we saw this series happen over in Asia, with the first stop in Shanghai, then in Incheon, and the series wrapping up in Singapore. This year, the 2025 Swimming World Cup is coming to North America, with the first stop in Carmel, Indiana, then Westmont, Illinois, before the series wraps up in Canada in Toronto, Ontario. One of the aspects that I find the most compelling about the Swimming World Cup is that after each stop is concluded, they crown a stop winner for both the men and women, and then after the whole series is concluded, they also crown an overall winner. But how are those winners determined? Is it just who can swim and then win the most events? Well, actually, there used to be no limit on how many events you could swim and earn points for, but these days it's capped at your 3 best events. Scores are made up of 2 components. The first is the more straightforward one, and it's just your placing in the event final. First and second place get a little bit of a bump with 10 and 8 points respectively, then the rest of the final get 6 down to 1 points. The second component is the number of aqua points that a swim ends up being worth, and if you don't know what aqua points are, they're a point system where the world record time in an event is worth 1,000 points. Then the further you get from that standard, the lower your points go. These used to be called FINA points back in the day before World Aquatics changed their name, if you're familiar with that term. And there are other point systems like USA Swimming's Power Points, and all these systems basically work the same way. Those points are then converted into a score roughly out of 10. I think you can technically go over 10 points if you smash a world record by a big enough margin. We can see that last year at the final stop, Kate Douglas actually managed to score 60.2 points with just 3 events. Winning an individual stop or the entire series isn't just about bragging rights either. There is a bit of prize money on the line as well. Prizes are paid out based on the overall swimmer rankings at each stop. The top 20 finishers receive payouts, with the stop winner getting $12,000 down to $4,000 for 20th place. The big payout is the overall series though. This pays out the top 8 swimmers for both men and women, with the winners taking home $100,000. There is also some bonus prize money available for swimmers as well. One is by breaking a world record, where you earn an extra $10,000, and you can do this multiple times, which we saw last year. In fact, we saw a lot of world records broken at the Swimming World Cup last year, and with some heavy hitters in attendance this year, hopefully we'll see the same. The other big bonus is only available at the final stop, the Triple Crown. And as you may guess, this is available for any swimmer that wins the same event at all 3 stops. And if they win it at the final stop, then they win the crown and a check for $10,000. Another neat bonus also revolves around those crown races, because if there's a swimmer chasing a triple crown at that final stop and someone else wins the event, they get a crown buster bonus of $2,500, which adds an extra layer of intensity to these races because someone is going to win some extra prize money. Now that you're refreshed on how exactly the Swimming World Cup works and what exactly is on the line, now let's take a look at some of the swimmers we know are going to be competing. With no entry lists available to us right now, we can't do a super deep dive into every event at every stop or anything like that, and there could be a number of swimmers that we don't yet know to be competing that we end up seeing swim. But there are a handful of swimmers we know will be swimming at all 3 stops. World Aquatics is calling these swimmers the Notable 9, and the women's field is headlined by Kate Douglas, Summer McIntosh, Kaylee McEwen, Molly O'Callaghan, and Regan Smith. The men's field is headlined by Thomas Chacon, Hubert Koch, Noé Ponty, and Josh Liendo. Last year, the race for the series title came down to Kate Douglas and Regan Smith, and it was down to the wire, with Douglas winning by a 1/10 of a point, thanks in part to her insane world records in the 200 breaststroke to give her a pretty nice bump. These two also smoked the rest of the field in the overall standings, as Siobhan Howie ended the 2025 2024 series in third, almost 18 points behind those two. The obvious disruptor added to the field this year is Summer McIntosh. While she did not compete at the World Cup last year, she did swim at Short Course Worlds, and at that meet she set 3 new world records. If McIntosh is close to those world record times at these stops, then she should be right around the 60-point mark at each stop, which is what Douglas and Smith were doing to dominate the standings last year. Not to mention the possibility of her absolutely smashing multiple world records to send her point total into overdrive, which is always on the table. While she was a very narrow second place last year, I don't think Regan Smith is as big of a threat to win the series this year, not because I'm predicting any major regression from her, but because of the presence of Kaylee McEwen. I'm thinking that these two both racing all 3 backstrokes head to head is going to result in neither of them actually sweeping the backstroke races, which is going to bring their point totals down. I know that McEwen has a reputation of winning the head-to-head matchup in the long course pool, but we can't forget that Smith actually owns all 3 world records by decent margins. I also think that Kate Douglas is going to be a pretty similar threat level to what she was last year when she won the series. If anyone is going to be putting the pressure on McIntosh this year, my money is on Douglas. So quite literally, while I was recording this script, World Aquatics posted announcing that Gretchen Walsh will also be attending all 3 stops of this World Cup series. Why she wasn't included in the original announcement, I have no idea. Maybe they didn't like the sound of the terrific 10. But with that, Gretchen Walsh is my co-favorite with Summer McIntosh to take the overall series crown. Our biggest wild card of this series has got to be Molly O'Callaghan, because we have not seen her race this format since the 2022 Short Course World Championships, and at that meet she only raced relays as well as the 50 and 100 backstrokes, though in those events she did win the bronze and silver. But O'Callaghan has always been one of my favorite swimmers to watch in long course, so I'm excited. Plus, that added mystery just helps build anticipation if you ask me. Moving on to the men, I'm actually going to start with someone that you may have noticed I haven't mentioned yet, Leon Marchand. Marchand is particularly notable for 2 reasons. One, he actually won the overall series last year and broke Ryan Lochte's 200 IM world record in the process. But 2, he is one of the few swimmers that is not part of the notable 9, but whose plans we actually do know for what stops he's going to be swimming at. Marchand plans on only swimming at the very first stop and not at the other 2. So while that does put him out of contention to actually win the overall series, he could pick up a stop win here and hopefully put up some pretty fast times in the process. That leaves Noé Ponty as the top ranked returning swimmer, as he finished last year as runner-up to Marchand, where he won triple crowns in both the 50 and 100 butterflies, setting multiple world records in the 50 fly. Ponty's other event of choice was the 100 IM, where he was face-to-face with Marchand as they had multiple knockdown drag-out battles, including a separation of 1/100th and a tie for first. Ponty was incredibly fun to watch at this series last year, and he is very high on my threat list this year. The biggest challenger to Ponty this year is likely Hubert Koch. Koch is another absolute machine, and between his skills in both backstroke and the IM events, he can probably find a path to sweep at least 3 of those, leaving the aqua points as the likely deciding factor for the series win at the end. Thomas Chacon is another returner from last year, where he finished in 8th overall, and he actually only won 1 single event during the entire series, and it was the 100 freestyle of all things. Another newcomer to the World Cup is Josh Liendo, and he's another newcomer who could be a bit of a wild card. We haven't seen very many recent short course meter swims out of Liendo, but he is currently an NCAA athlete competing in short course yards where he excels, so we know that he can definitely throw down in a shorter format. The bigger mystery is what kind of shape Liendo is going to be in, because he swims for Florida, which still trains in a more old school fashion, where they get absolutely beaten down during the regular season and swim pretty slow before finally having some massive drops at the end of the season. If that is the case for Liendo right now, then he might place pretty solidly, but not threaten to take the overall series crown. The one thing to keep an eye out for is that oftentimes when a swimmer trains like this, you see them get radically better as the meets go on, because it finally allows their body to recover from all the tough training over time. Though, if Liendo is in top form, those races in the 100 butterfly are going to be absolutely insane, because Noé Ponty is the world record holder in short course meters, as well as one of the fastest swimmers ever in long course. Meanwhile, while Leandro is one of the fastest swimmers ever in both long course and short course yards. If both those swimmers are firing on all cylinders, those races are going to be nutty. I am super excited for the Swimming World Cup to start up. There should be a ton of very exciting racing, and I always like the fact that it's spread out over 3 weeks, allowing us time to really enjoy it. Plus, I really enjoy following the running through line of who's going to win the overall series. Who are you most excited to see swim during the 2025 Swimming World Cup? And which swimmer that hasn't been announced are you most hoping makes an appearance at least one stop? For me, it's Gretchen Walsh, because she is an absolute demon in short course. And like I said before, I already got what I wanted here. But what about you? Let me know down below.